Welcome to the Business Basics episode. So in this episode, we're going to talk about some of the real fundamentals of a business. Let's go right back to basics. Let's get started from the very beginning. And it's something that's going to be really important for you because ultimately, if you don't understand this principle, you can't run a business. It's as simple as that. Everything starts and stops with you as the business owner. So we're going to look at a few things. First and foremost, people buy stuff from businesses. People buy potentially from you. People are going to be buying from you. One key thing is they're not going to buy something from you if they don't need what it is you're selling. So have a look at what it is you're selling, have a look at what you want to sell, and have a look at what the pool of people is who are going to buy from you. Because ultimately, if you don't have a product that someone wants, you won't sell anything. And that is a really important aspect to running business, because when people buy, they buy what it is they're looking for. And they're going to then worry about all the other stuff, whether it comes into who's cheaper, who's a better quality, who's a more established person, who can they trust. All that stuff comes into it. But the very, very beginning, let's break it down. People buy what it is they need. So what is it that you have that they want? What's your business going to entail? Is it a service business where you're providing some kind of service? Classic service business, let's take a mechanical workshop, you're providing a service, but you're also providing potentially parts as well. So that's also a product and service. Let's go back to just plain only service. Someone who's cutting someone's lawns, for instance. A lawn mowing business is a service-only business. A person who cleans someone's car, just car washing, is a service-only business. And then you've got a product-only business. So, for instance, you're providing someone with tea, or you're providing someone with golf balls. You're providing someone with a product. That's a product-only business. Then there are people who have a product and service business, like the mechanical workshop I just mentioned. For instance, they could be fixing people's vehicles, they could be, changing brake pads, you could be changing discs, you could be doing all different sorts of things on vehicles and things like that. But you could also provide the product, so the replacement parts, or you could be selling additional items that people might want to buy. New windscreen wiper blades, new car seat covers. You could be providing spare oil. You could be providing them with a fire extinguisher. You could be providing them with a first aid kit. When you start thinking about the opportunity for any business to expand on, it's not just a linear process. It's about thinking what it is the client wants. And sometimes that means you making a change to your business. And it might be going away from your core business, but you've got to go where the buyer is. You've got to go where the market is. And that's a very simple philosophy. It's very basic. And most people understand that. But a lot of people forget it. And they forget it with business. They forget it with business development. So I've been in business development a long time, and I can tell you from the get-go, sometimes I've introduced products, I look at it and went, I just can't see a market for this, and I was proven right. Other times when I've gone to introduce a product where I think this is going to fly, it's absolutely going to go off, everyone's going to want to get involved, and it has failed. And the reality is, sometimes when we're launching something, we might be invested in it. But are other people on board with your thoughts? Are other people on board with what it is that you want to do? And you might be passionate about something, but it doesn't mean that is going to be what it is that they want. So that's a very fundamental business basic. It's something you need to establish right from the start. The very first thing you have to do is establish what it is you're selling and who is going to buy from you. What are the markets? What are the other people in your market going to do? And then you've got to look at all that other fancy stuff. So if you've come up with a great idea, it may be the best idea in the world, but if no one wants to get on board with that, it's going to be a very hard road for you to travel. The other thing is you might be before your time. That product or that service that you might have in mind may not be required by the people who are going to buy it from you for some time yet. So perhaps bank the idea, write it down, keep detailed notes on your thoughts, because your thoughts are what could potentially become something huge. Every big business started small from somewhere. You had to take the people like Apple, where they started and they toiled for many, many years before they became successful the way they were. Because of why? They stuck at it, they believed in it, but at that point in time, they were ahead of where the market was. People really didn't want the Apple products at the point in time when they were really struggling. But what they were doing is they had enough vision ahead to think, this is where we could take this company, this is where we could take this product. We've just got to get the market to come with us. So that's another thing that you can do. Sometimes you can create a market around the product you've got to sell. Sometimes people don't know what it is that they want until they see it. And you'll always get people who are what's called early adopters. They'll see what it is you've got and they'll want to come on board and they'll want to take that and run. And they want to be the ones who show all the other people the new thing that they're into. And, that there in itself is a very good thing to be part of if that's something that you're doing. Now, generally, sometimes businesses get to a point where they can't expand anymore through their own internal ability, the ability of the leaders involved, or the vision of the leaders involved. And so what happens then is, people then can branch out and start expanding their business through something called franchising. And that was something that I was involved in. Back in 2004, I started a franchise system. I was a co-founder of that, and we took that business to 17 countries around the world. And in that, I was mainly involved in operations, but there was a lot of business development as well that I took part in. And, from that, it taught me a lot because I worked with a lot of business owners in all parts of the world. And I saw where they failed and I saw where they succeeded. And I can guarantee you every person who came into that organization, every person who started those franchises thought that they were going to be fully successful. And we had some really successful franchisees. But we had some that just gave up, or they didn't follow the proven pathway that was there in front of them. So that's another thing to think about. If you're not following the core principles, you're going to set yourself up for failure. And one thing that I can 100% assure you with the business principles are, starting any new business is going to take a lot of dedication. It's going to take a lot of hours. You're not going to get paid for the time you put in, not for a long time. And you can expect it to take some time to take off. The general rule of thumb that I've seen is between 2 to 3 years before you really see something becoming really successful on its own merit, without you needing to put the effort in like, it's some brand new thing that's come out of nowhere. And if that's the case, you've got to be prepared for that. And I think that's another thing where people fall down starting out with business principles, business basics, is sometimes they think it's going to be a lot easier than it is, and they get started and they realize that it's not, and that's where they fall down. So understand it's going to take time. Understand, it's going to be potentially tough. You've got to make sure personally you're prepared for that. And it's going to be a fight, but out the other end comes a lot of reward. It comes a lot of satisfaction, and also a lot of pride that you started something that was successful, and you were able to forge your own path. One of the best parts about being self-employed or being a business owner is that you have a lot of freedom. You have the freedom to put in a lot of work. You have the freedom to be lazy. You have the freedom to be hardworking. And you have the freedom to be controlling. You have the freedom to be overbearing. You have all these different freedoms. And with freedom comes responsibility and an absolute need for discipline. And not everyone has this ability right from the get-go to understand what it takes to run a business. My belief is everyone should run a business. Everyone should get involved in a business at some stage. They'll understand how the world works. Because when I hear people complaining about their job situation, their entitlements, I'm not getting paid this, I'm not getting paid that, I haven't had a pay rise, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, they don't understand the complexity behind running the business that's giving them a job. Now, yes, they're giving their service to that business, but for the most part, it's a small aspect of that business operation. So sometimes people don't appreciate the organisation they work with, or they don't appreciate the brand that's been established. They don't appreciate all the equity that's been built up in people's time and effort before. So as an employee, it's very easy to be critical then, and then you form little posses and people want to sabotage the business that they're working for out of spite or out of, just bad blood. And if you've seen that in the workplace, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not a nice environment to be in. And sadly, a lot of businesses end up failing as a result of that. So personnel is something else you have to consider. If you're going to expand your business down the track, you're going to have to employ people. And employing people can be a tough gig. Now, I'm going to hopefully give you some information on employing the right people for the job, and also giving you some information on how to become good leaders in your own organisation, setting examples. And then when you get success, not letting that run away from you, because success sometimes goes to people's head. It sometimes is what causes them to come undone, and I've seen examples of that firsthand. And I can honestly say to you that if that's the case, if you're seeing success in the business and you're out buying luxurious things that your business can't afford or you can't afford to sustain, you're going to put more pressure on your business when times get tough. Now, this is a very critical aspect because unlike being an employee where you rock up to work every day, you get paid at the end of each week, you don't really have to think about the income side of things too much, unless that's part of your job. But as a business owner, you're worried about every dollar that comes through the door, and you're worried about every dollar that goes out. And there are some things that you should put money towards, and there are some things that you should absolutely keep to yourself and not let go of. And you've got to make the decisions on what's going to be best for the business. The most successful businesses are the ones who make a profit and pour that profit back into the business for further growth. But it's the right kind of growth. It's not the growth that the business can't take. It's not the growth that you can't lead anymore. It's growth that's going to give you more growth. It's growth that's going to grow and build the business the right way. Putting in the foundations to grow is also important, and ensuring that you've got those layers packed in behind, and then your fail safes and your team. I can't stress when you're starting out how important it is to build a good team of people around you, and people who believe in what you're doing, people who have the same goal on board, people who for the most part understand what you're trying to achieve and want to be part of that success. And I can honestly say to you, never ever take those people for granted, because they're the people you want to keep. They're the people who will help you grow your business and get you where you want to be. So reward for effort. But again, you've got to look at it from that point of view. Are you overstepping the mark in terms of what it is you're going to achieve, how much profit you're going to bring in, and how much expenses you've got on board? If you take on too many expenses and you can't pay that back, that's going to be an ugly outcome. So even things like rent, I've seen a lot of people go into shopping centres with the expectation the shopping centre is going to bring them all these people, which it will. It will bring a lot of people in, but it comes at a cost. Shopping centres, for the most part, you've got the rent. You've also got profit share with the shopping centre. You've got marketing plans. You've got your own marketing that you have to do as well, and staff management and things like that. And a lot of people end up becoming committed to that. So I'm actually bringing you this segment from my home office, which is great because you have to be able to have different locations that you can work from, because when you run a business, you will find you will work out of hours, and you don't have to be tied to an office to run a business either. Actually, one of the best businesses I ran was, for the most part, run from a coffee shop. Every day I would different coffee shops and go, laptop is all you need, a Wi-Fi connection, good phone connectivity, and when you're starting out, that's a great thing. Sometimes you don't need an office, where you're paying rent and things like that to actually do that. And so there's some advantages of having a home office too. Tax breaks. There's also, you can start earlier because when you get up, you're straight in your home office, and you can finish later, and you're not stuck in traffic. So there's a whole bunch of things there that can save you money. So along the way, we'll talk about how you structure things. But there's some of the business fundamentals that I wanted to cover in this that you have to consider right from the start, and keep considering as you're running your business, because profit and loss come down to many little things that make up your overall aspect, but it all comes back to that core principle that I mentioned earlier on. People buy product or service from you. What is it that you're selling? What is it that the people want? And how can you get more of those products into those people's hands? And so if you're not providing them with what they want, they're not going to buy from you. I'm sorry. As much as you want that to be the case, it's not the case. And then you've got to look at your limitations too. Let's go back to those business structures. If you're just a service-only business and it's you're the only person, how much can you really make out of that scenario if you're looking for that? But if you're looking for satisfaction, you're looking for that freedom and all those things I mentioned before, that's a great scenario, right? But just understand, you can only sell service at a certain rate, and you can only sell as much as you personally can do, unless you then replicate that and start selling franchises and make a little bit of money from each person that you sell your franchise to. But out of that, you have to establish a brand. You have to establish a whole bunch of different things. So I'll cover that in a franchising episode, and I'll get some people on as well who's right into franchising, and look at some of the pitfalls that they have seen. But for the most part, if it is a service that you're selling, and you're selling yourself for time, then you're only going to be restricted by how much time you can devote to it. How much time can you bill? And if it's let's say the lawn mowing business I spoke about before, how many hours in the day can you cut lawns for? How many hours of the day can you fit in? And you are then restricted in your time. So your time is going to cost you there. So if you're a product business, that's a whole different ballgame. If it's just product you're selling, go back to, I mentioned before, golf balls. You'd have to establish who's going to buy the golf balls, where are you going to sell them, what mechanism are you going to use to get those golf balls into people's pockets and have them pay out their hard-earned money to buy your golf balls, and ultimately what separates you from someone else. So there's a lot of competing factors when you're a product-only business. When you're a product and service business, that's actually a really nice dynamic to be in, because you've got the best of both worlds. Not only can you sell a service, you can also make some money out of the product. But understand, stocking product is going to cost you money. It's going to cost you money in you buying the stock. You could have what's called dead stock, where it just sits on the shelf or it sits in your storage and you don't ever sell it or you don't ever move it on. That's just sitting around, costing you money. You've got stock take, you've got all these other things that are going to have to consume your time to maintain that stock. You're going to have to reorder it. If it's out of stock, all these different aspects come into keeping that product from the end user, who's the buyer. If you're keeping them from buying that product, again, it's going to cost you income, and it's going to potentially turn them off your brand. Imagine if they turn off your brand because all of a sudden, I was able to buy a certain product, I got hooked on that product, and you were the only source of it, and then all of a sudden you're out of stock, and I now need that product. What's my first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to go looking for an alternative, and I'm going to think, well, this company here is unreliable. So it has a massive impact on your image and on your brand. And I've seen some products actually take off really fast and not be able to keep up with demand because of that, and then that's cost them, and that's actually failed as a result. So again, there's a lot of complexities with the type of structure that you want, but it comes back to that core principle. What is it you're selling? Who are you selling it to? What's the application? And also, what's the likelihood of you being able to expand? So that comes back to your basic goals. What is it that you want out of your business? And that's something I think I'll set you this task. Go away from this, write down what your market is. What are you selling? And I know you might have done this already, but do it again. Write down, what are you selling? Who are the people you're wanting to sell it to? And I don't mean the demographics. I don't mean it's going to be a person who is female, age 25 to 40. I don't mean that. What I mean is, What type of people are going to buy your product? Is it a sporting person? Is it a mum? Is it a dad? Is it families? Is it a young person? Is it an older person? Try and establish what it is you think that is going on there. So you at least got an idea of where that is. So where I'm going with that is you can work out what your market is going to be in terms of your size, and then you can work out how you're going to start pitching your product to those people, or your service, whatever it is that you're pitching, how you're going to get your message to them to make them buy from you, because that's a next aspect to it. And in business development, that's the key to everything. You want to be able to sell your product and service, or whatever it is you're selling, to the right market. It makes your job a lot easier. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, because it won't, but that's the first thing you need to do. So write down the details of what you're selling, who you're selling it to, what that market might look like, and also then I want you to have a look at something else, which is, what is the opportunity for me in that area? So could I add something to it? For instance, the golf balls. If you're selling golf balls to people, could you sell them golf tees as well as golf balls? And if you're not doing that already, maybe think of that. Branded golf tees, why is your tee any better than that? But maybe the golf tee matches the golf ball. Maybe it makes the combination of the two, extraordinary. Maybe that will really give them the edge on the golf course. That's an example of what I'm talking about. But from that point of view, you can then sit back and say, well, how else can I make money? How can I expand on what I've already done? How can I expand on that operation and take it further? And you may not even be ready for that, but you've got to establish what that is. So once you've set that goal for yourself, then I want you to sit back and say, what is it that I want out of this business? What is it I want in 12 months? What is it I want in 5 years? What is it I want in 10 years? And if your idea is to build it up to a point where you can sell it and then sell it to somebody else, that's great. But you've got to have a goal plan for that. You've got to have a strategy that comes out of this. And this is about starting to formulate business cases. It's about starting to formulate business plans. Because I can honestly assure you, most people don't develop a business plan. They never put one together, and then they wonder why their business fails, or they get so involved in business along the way, they don't realize that they've gone off their track, they've gone off the plan, because they never put one in place to start with. So if you don't have a business plan in place about what it is you want from your business, where you want it to be, I can assure you it will never be there. You'll never get there, because how else will you know what to do, and whether you're tracking correctly too. And all those different aspects of what you're doing along the way can be basically set against where your business plan is. And if you're tracking on the right pathway, that's fantastic. But if you're off the right path, off the pathway where you know that you want to be, that just shows that maybe you need to reset and come back to what you want to be. Because after a while running your own business, you can get bogged down in stuff that goes on, and you can get bogged down in profit loss, all those different aspects, and you can be pulled off track of what you're trying to achieve very easily, because distraction, in 2 years' time, let's picture that in 2 years' time for what you are now. Let's just say things have taken, great turn. You've gone up, in profit. You're retaining stuff. You're really making headway along the way, and you've forgotten where you wanted to be in 5 years. You won't ever get there. And the reason for that is because you didn't write it down. You didn't formulate a business plan. You didn't keep coming back to that plan and checking where it is you want to be. So my advice to you, establish your market. What is it that you want to achieve out of your business? Who's your market? Who's going to buy from you? What product or service are you going to sell to them? And ultimately, what is it that you're going to try and achieve? And if it's those core basic principles we were talking about of just making money for your service or making money for your time, and you just want to basically buy yourself a job, that's okay. But establish those ground rules from the start, because in 5 years' time, if you look back and go, oh, that wasn't really what I wanted, you can bring it always back to what you wanted at the start. That doesn't mean that your goals don't change along the way, or your vision doesn't change, or your ambition doesn't change, because everyone's life changes. 5 years is a long time. A lot can be achieved in that. But having said that, if you don't start with a plan in place, you will never ever reach where you want to be. So hopefully that's giving you some insight in what you can do. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video because that does help the channel grow, and ultimately write some comments down in the bottom. Tell me what it is that you want to know about, what you want to hear, and I'll hopefully try and help you with that. And as we move forward, you'll be able to find more of these types of videos coming onto the channel all the time. And also I'm going to try and get some interviews going with different successful business people in all different areas and try and find out what it is they do, because hopefully that'll help us all along the way. I'll learn, they'll learn, and you'll learn too. Thanks for watching.